This is the Selected Podcast, your backstage pass and exclusive access to some of the biggest names in the tech industry. Brought to you by Sesamers, the definitive name in tech event media.
Hi there, this is Ben from Sesamers, recording live from the SIAL Startups area during SIAL Paris 2024. We're speaking with exhibitors, startups, investors, and speakers about the future of food, innovation, and technology. I'm excited to be joined by Sirli Rosenvald, an expert in the field of alternative proteins. Hi, Sirli. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you. I'm doing very well. It's very exciting to be here in Paris in the middle of food innovation all around us.
Can you tell us about your background, what you were doing before, what you're doing today?
So I'm a food researcher. I have a PhD in food technologies in background. I have been working with all sorts of different food technologies, but in recent 5 years, I have been working in alternative protein field, working with different protein sources and also with different technologies. And a bit more than 2 years ago, I also started my entrepreneurial career, co-founded a startup called Funki that is working with mycoprotein, so fermented protein from fungal mycelium.
Interesting. I need to understand, we talk to people here, we have listeners who don't really know so much maybe about this particular field. What are the different type of so-called alternative proteins? And earlier today, people were calling them complementary proteins or new proteins. What are the different type of technologies? And then maybe you tell us a bit more about the ones you're specialized in currently.
I really like the term complementary proteins. I'm not so much maybe used to it because it has been called alternative proteins for so many years. But the idea behind is that producing protein from animals is a very environmentally demanding, and it is quite inefficient process. So from one side, we have problems with climate change, and from the other side, the population on the earth is growing a lot. So meat consumption is increasing a lot, and we really need to have more efficient, more environmental friendly solution to be able to feed all the people in a nutritive way. So that's why we are working with all that sort of new protein sources that could complement the animal-based ones.
The research center is what, like 10 years old?
So the research center actually just has celebrated its 20th birthday.
20, okay.
Yeah.
And you've been there for 5 years, you said?
I have actually been there for more than 10 years.
Okay.
But we switched or we started working in the alternative protein field a bit more than 5 years ago.
Okay, got it. Now, your special area with fungi, what is it? What type of process or technology are you using there?
So when we think about alternative protein, the most common ones are based on plants.
Yeah.
So from
typical,
pea,
like your soja steak, stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So fermented proteins are now very much emerging, and this basically means that we will use a process similarly for a brewing industry, for example. We take a small fungi and we grow them in large metal vessels called fermenters, which are actually in the brewing industry, and we get a lot of biomass out of it. And what's the real benefit of fermented proteins is that we don't have so much constraints. So we don't need any arable lands. We are not so much dependent on the climate conditions. So basically, you can produce protein in a controlled internal environment all around the world. So it doesn't matter what the weather is like or if you have really fertilized soil available.
And I'm asking like maybe questions that are hard to describe with words, but what are the quantities? Like you talk about those big metal fermentizer. You see, I'm not ignorant. How much production can you do? Like, what is it?
So actually, there are already today companies who are industrially producing that kind of material, and they are producing it in thousands of tons per year. So we are actually talking about technology that is really scalable, and you can really take it into mass consumption and production.
So what is it that you're doing that is special? Why do you need to start a new company to do something like that?
So that's a good question. But the thing is that when we talk about alternative proteins, one of the things that we always say is the cost.
Yeah.
And let's say that there are some technologies available But now it is really important to make these technologies even more efficient in cost-wise, look over the environmental input as well, because even if it is more sustainable compared to meat production, there are still some challenges like huge water consumption. It still needs some electricity, energy. So there are plenty of ways how to make it even more sustainable and more cost efficient.
And that's where you are exploring and building a new product or your company.
Yes, that's the way.
Can you explain a bit also the other type of technologies? So we talk about fermentation, plant-based, cultured meats.
Yeah.
What is that?
So plant-based proteins is basically that you grow a crop like pea or oat, and you take protein out of it. So you basically extract the protein, and then you have to use some sort of technologies to give it a structure.
Yeah, to put it together in a way that is you can eat it well, right?
Yeah, it resembles meat. You want it to be fibrous. You want it to be similar to meat. If we talk about meat alternative category.
Okay.
And the biggest challenge in plant protein field is that plants have very distinctive flavor properties and taste. So if you want to make a meat out of pea, you don't actually want it to taste like pea. So I would say in plant protein area, there is a lot of research on how to make this taste more neutral, how you could really... I actually heard 2 weeks ago from a guy from England that already in 90s, they discovered a gene which is basically responsible for pea-like taste. And now they are start to working with that. So they will basically have a pea as a protein source, which doesn't taste like pea.
Okay.
And I think if they can really make it in real life, so they can really grow that in real condition, it would be a really different. So you can really develop products with a whole new sensory quality.
Because it's not too hard to give the meat flavor. What is hard is to remove the pea or the soja flavor.
Yeah, to get rid of those flavors and the bitterness.
Yeah.
So in recent years, we have also started to look a bit more into the crops already, because to select the right varieties, because up to now, all the peas and the crops have been selected based on their agricultural properties, like how well they defend the diseases and yield.
The yield and
But now it's more and more getting that we really have to look which are the best varieties for these new types of protein products. And I would say that this is just now starting. So there is a research going on in all places of the world, but it's still in the beginning, let's say, nothing industrial.
So this is the plant, okay, plant-based. Fermentation, what is it?
So fermentation can be fungi, which already told a bit, but this could also be like yeast or bacteria or some other microorganisms.
Okay, and same story, you create proteins with this process that can come closer in taste to traditional meat.
Yes.
Okay. And the third one I was mentioning earlier was the cultured meat.
Yes, the cultivated meat or lab-grown meat, or it has many names.
I heard that they don't like to call it lab meat because people don't like the word lab, so they say cultivated meat.
Yeah, that's true, because they're saying that all the food products at the beginning come out from the lab, but we don't call it lab bread or lab milk, so it really makes sense. But cultivated meat, this actually means that you will grow the mammalian cells. You grow the cells of the lamb or cow, so this is like cultivating the real cells itself. But this is also really challenging, because I would say the biggest struggles there is how to get it. The costs are right now very expensive, so the price of the piece of the meat that you grow.
What is the price? Can you give us an idea?
I would say that we are talking about hundreds of euros or dollars. It depends. And
like if it was like Spanish ham bellota level, that the cost is like almost like the Spanish ham, the bellota,
Yeah. So it's
several hundred euros per kilo.
Yeah, because it is, and also there are scalability issues, and that's also coming back to the price. So these cells grow very slowly, and that's the problem. How to make them growing faster?
Are there regions, in the world where this is happening faster, actually, where this transition to new form of proteins, alternative proteins, is there's a bigger demand, there's a bigger adoption?
So I think this is driven by North America and Europe. These are the places where but in Europe we can also see like different level of adoption and the different market sizes. UK, for example, is very much driving, and also Netherlands, Germany. So these are the biggest markets for that kind of food products. And also in the innovation-wise, I would say that Netherlands is very in the forefront.
Yeah.
But of course, so Singapore and all that parts of the world where the legislative things are a bit more easier, because Europe is, from the legislative part, very difficult market to enter with very innovative things.
Okay, wait. So you're going to have to explain this a little bit more. So you're telling me that if I do something very innovative, it's how to bring it to the European markets?
Yeah.
For what reason? Like you said, regulation. I understand that we are cautious about the quality or the origins of the product. But why is innovation banned or harder to bring? Explain this to me, please.
Yeah, so we can say it's not bad, but it's good to be a consumer in Europe, because you know that everything that you eat is been checking very thoroughly. But it's bad to be a food startup in Europe, because in Europe everything has to be approved by EFSA, which is European Food Safety Organization. And basically all the food products that haven't been consumed before 1997 have to go through that approval process.
What? So 1997?
Yes.
So if the food wasn't consumed before 1997 in Europe, you have to get authorized.
Then it's okay. You don't have to get a separate approval. If nobody has consumed it before 1997...
Why 1997? What happened?
That's a good question.
What is this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to say that I don't have an answer, but
we'll research. We'll look for it.
I will search it out myself as well, because I have
put
never
it in the
thought
show
about it.
notes. What's going on in 1997? Okay.
Yeah, but that's an interesting fact. So now everything that hasn't been consumed before that, you really have to go through that process.
Got it. I know that it's a pain. We've talked to startups here. We're surrounded with startups, and they explain this to us. There's a lot of companies that are coming from the Netherlands also here, which represents, this innovation trend and powerhouse that you mentioned. I was wondering what were some of the challenges to scale production. And you were mentioning the regulatory hurdles. We talked about a bit of consumer acceptance, maybe the costs. How is it for you? What is your experience? And again, I feel like I need to ask you, why are you doing a startup in that space?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think it is difficult to do a startup in FoodTech space, because it always, or most of the cases, it involves some capex costs. So you cannot do a company just with people and a bunch of computers. So I would say that that the capital expenses are one of the difficult things in there. And especially if we talk about fermentation-derived proteins, there is not enough fermentation capacity out there. And this is really challenging, because it costs quite a lot of money. And this eventually goes also into the cost of the product. So I would say that we at Funki and also other startups in that field, they are very much looking for partnerships and how to avoid to put VC investors' money into building a facility.
So what you're saying here is that you, instead of using venture capital fund to have a factory, you recommend, or it makes sense for the startup to work with existing facilities, right?
Yes. And yeah, if that is possible, because the lack of fermentation capacity is kind of an issue, but there still are companies who are providing, like CDMOs, who provide contract manufacturing services for these startups as well. And the other thing actually is that different governments or countries are interested to get that kind of new innovative food companies into their country.
Yeah.
And
which ones will be the more active countries?
I know that Netherlands are very active. They have been approached me as well for many times. And I know also in Estonia, I think in a lot of countries, there are actually CapEx support. So they are providing support to invest in building factories. So it's very realistic to get at least 50% of your CapEx costs covered by the governments.
Well, and they also want to attract the staff, the skills, the workers.
Yes.
Okay. Continuing, with that subject, and I think it's something worth sharing because you have that experience from the research center as well. How do you see it for startups that are building these new solutions, these new products to work with larger companies? What are the challenges and what can they do also as a startup to make it easier for the corporation? And I'm asking also from your experience because I feel like as a researcher within the research center, you also have the opportunity to interact with large corporations, right?
Yes, so I am interacting with large corporations, but also with startups. But I would say that for startups, I guess one of the most critical things is IP. So this is really important. IP. Yes.
So intellectual property.
Yes, the intellectual property. And I think that is one of the things maybe that they are the most afraid of when communicating with big corporations, so that they could still own their IP and they will not give away something. Actually, it is the same when startups interact with research organizations, because when we do also research projects together, startups' first question is that how will we share the IP? Because you are doing the research, you are generating the new knowledge, but we are the ones who want to own it. So I would say that IP is one of the things.
And what is the typical practice here? Like, are you sharing the IP 50-50, 20-80? What is the deal? The normal, maybe in your case,
Yeah, so I think there can be different models, and it also depends on how this research is financed.
Yeah. Okay.
If this research is fully financed by the startup, so they are paying for everything.
Yeah.
So usually research organization owns the IP that it had before that project, the background or foreground like IP, and all the things that is generated that goes to the startups. But if this is financed by in some kind of combined way, then there are of course some licensing possibilities, either exclusive or non-exclusive, and so there can be different kind of approaches in there.
I was, just listening to you. I was like, is this space the one you're into, this complementary protein space? Is it impacted by other technologies that are outside of food? Like, for example, artificial intelligence. Is it something that has anything to do with your space, or really it's two separate worlds?
No, it's not. It's not two separate words. There are plenty of companies who try to also benefit from these new emerging technologies like AI as well. But it requires, I would say that it requires a lot of data to use AI. And in FoodTech and biotech, every experiment takes time. So that I would say that is the challenge, maybe, to get the most out of it, because it takes time to generate huge data sets.
Got it. You're here at SIAL Paris. What are you looking for in an event like this one? What is your goal here?
So as in my everyday life, I still work with food technologies in very broad aspect, though alternative proteins have very specific or special place in there. So I'm here to see what is the latest innovation, what are the trends, what are the new companies. I'm here to see the ideas, but I'm also very much interested to taste some new products and to get this knowledge and bring it back to our center to share with my colleagues, so we could also look where we want to develop in future, what kind of research projects to apply, and what kind of things we could provide or offer to our partners.
So also for looking for inspiration in a sense, new trends, understanding what are the and you mentioned to me that 2 years ago there was a lot more alternative protein exhibitors.
Yeah, I guess it was 3 years ago, but yeah, that's true. There were a lot of more exhibitors in alternative protein space. So I was really surprised when I started to look those alternative protein companies. I think they are somehow scattered as well. So they're not all in one place. So it's a bit more difficult to see them all.
We're getting to the end. Where can people follow your work and learn more about your companies and your activities?
So I'm very active in LinkedIn, so feel free to look me out in there, and if you're interested, we can connect and contact.
Thank you so much for your time, Sirli.
Thank you.
It's been a fascinating dive into the future of food and how alternative proteins are playing such a critical role in transforming the industry. We're recording live from SIAL Startups area at SIAL Paris 2024. As usual, I want to give a big thanks to the SIAL team, to our Sesamers team who is making this possible. And don't forget to subscribe to the selected podcast to stay updated on food innovation, startups, event technology, and everything in between. See you soon on Sesamers.